If you go to the Google Classroom on the classwork tab, you will see that I put in a little thing for today just to get us started. We don't have access to Blackboard, or you don't have access to Blackboard until the 18th, I think, which is Martin Luther King Day. And then classes at STC start on the 19th. We're not going to wait that long, obviously. But if you go to this little entry here on the Google Classroom, I think they're going to be issuing new Google Classrooms too. There are a lot of residual tech issues from first semester. I'll talk about those in a minute. But if you go here, I have a little mini agenda and the main link that you need for today. So I thought I would do updates. Did y'all have a good break? Hopefully, maybe you can tell me in the chat. Hopefully you had some rest time. Maybe you got to do some things for yourself. Hopefully you didn't have too many chores, or I don't know if anybody gave you any assignments over the break. Hopefully that was okay. But you know, hopefully you spent some time with your family and all that good stuff. We just opened our Christmas presents with my family yesterday because they all got lost in the mail. I sent my parents and everybody up north a big old box on like the 12th of December, and it didn't get there until yesterday. So that was kind of a bummer. On Christmas, Mr. Ramos and I opened gifts here, and usually we have stuff from my parents, but theirs didn't get here until almost a week after Christmas. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer. But anyway, hopefully you had a good break. A few updates on tech and schedules. So as you know, before Christmas break, we had a breach in the computer system here in Weslaco ISD, and that has not been completely resolved yet. The gradebook is still not online. They told us yesterday 3 different times that it was going to be up and running, and it still isn't, which means you don't have access to the portal. It also means that your first semester grades for East have not been calculated in any of your classes because we didn't have access to the gradebook. If you can't get on the portal, we can't, it's still locked out to us too. So yesterday they told us that our grades were due, they changed the date to Thursday, but I think they're going to have to change that again because as of this morning, the gradebook still wasn't available. So I think they're going to have to update that so that we can, when it's working, we can all get in there and put in our semester exams and all that good stuff, final grades. They did say that there wasn't a data loss in the grade book, so that's good. But I mean, obviously teachers need a day or two to get in there and put in what they need to put in for the first semester. So I'm assuming that in the next couple of days, they'll have that ready. You can try the portal, and whenever the portal opens up, you'll know that it's available for us too. I don't think your grade's gonna be that different from your STC grade. There are a few other assignments that go into the East grade for the first term that aren't in the STC grade, and the percentages are a little bit different in the way that it averages with the 6 weeks. So there is a little variance usually, but it's not a huge difference. It's not like you made a B in STC and you're gonna be making, 100 in the East or anything like that. What other tech issues? There is still no Wi-Fi at the campus, so all the teachers are teaching from home this week. And they say that on Monday we should be good to go back to campus, but I don't know. I don't know about that. Anyway, if you are in hybrid and going to campus, just be forewarned that campus is open to you if there are parents who need their kids to be in school, but there's no Wi-Fi. So yeah, we're not at campus, but they do have proctors. So if you have friends who need to go to campus, they can go, but it's limited. The functionality of school is limited. Any questions about text? Tech issues that I didn't touch on? No? You can bring them up in the chat if you like. All right, schedules. They announced yesterday that they're technically starting the second semester schedules next Monday. That doesn't mean you don't have class this week. It just means that this week you should be following your first semester schedule. There are some people in this class that are not taking the 23-21 course. You should have already been contacted by your counselor if that's the case. And for this week, you can just show up to the class. I'll mark you present, and then that's it, so that you don't get marked absent. So the official new schedules for second semester, if you have semester courses, will start on Monday. Right now, you probably don't even know what those courses are if you have semester split courses, but they're saying that the grade portal and the Google Classroom will all be updated, and you should see the new courses in your Google Classroom if you have a replacement one, or I think they remake the classes also for your existing courses. So whenever that updates, you'll be able to see your new course list. And I guess they're thinking that's going to be done before Monday, I guess. So, what else on schedules? I think that's it. Most people have year-long courses, so.
Miss Ramos.
Yes.
So I don't have this class next semester, but Miss Martinez, like I know I don't have this class next semester because like when we were meeting last year for like to plan out like this year's classes, she told me like I was just gonna take the first semester of this class, and then like to replace the second semester, I was gonna have to take like speech, like the second part, which is like the public speaking, something like that. And I took it like last semester, but she still hasn't like emailed me or anything.
Oh, well, no, you're on this. You're on the roster for STC. Who is it that was just talking?
Oh, Natalie.
Oh, Natalie. Yeah. So you might want to send an email to Miss Martinez, because I looked on the roster for STC just yesterday to see who was enrolled, and you're on the roster. I can double check today, but you might want to check with her, because then that way she can do the schedule change at STC and also for East that you might need for that other course, that speech course.
Okay,
but this week, check in with me. Yeah, this week check in with me just so I can mark you present and you don't end up with any attendance problems.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, let me know how that goes, because if you need, I don't know, everybody's kind of jammed up with emails nowadays. So if you need me to contact her, or you just, let me know and I'll see if I can help you out there. But yeah, everything's a little bit confusing right now because they haven't been able to get in and do some of the work that they need to do because of the breach. So I think that's why they're delaying like the technical start to the second semester. School isn't delayed, but the second semester is delayed to next week. So yeah, so you don't have to stay for the whole thing. I mean, unless you want to, unless it's exciting for you to watch me talk about what's going to be happening second semester. But yeah, we just have to be patient with the process. I just figure there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on that I don't know about. And as soon as they can clear everything up, that they will. It looks like they're trying to get everything cleared up for Monday next week. But we're going to start. 23-21 is a jam-packed course. It's way more reading than first semester. And so there are some shifts and things that happen different second semester than first semester. And so I want to spend today kind of talking about that. I don't have access to even the thing that makes the syllabus at STC. They haven't even opened that up for me for this course. So I have kind of like what I did was I made a website, and I'm going to go through that today with everybody. But are there any other updates, questions, even if it's not a tech issue or a schedule issue? Is there anything else that you're wondering about that I can answer or try to find out for you? I feel like in this virtual thing, not everything gets 100% communicated in every direction. So I want to make sure you have opportunities. You can contact me anytime if there's something that you don't understand about the course, but also if there's just something going on with school that you don't know about or you're confused. Remember on the first page over here of the Google Classroom, you can email me. I have a Google Voice. You can text me at that number, and I respond to those pretty much right away. So if something comes up, otherwise I'm just going to launch into the overview of the new course. Okay. Well, usually the first day, what people want to know is, like what's coming up, what's going to be happening, how's it going to work this semester. Like I said, they even opened the Concourse, which is the system that we use to make the syllabus for STC. I'm assuming that they'll do that sometime next week. I will be providing you a syllabus when we have the official start to the STC semester, but I don't want to wait. I think it would be a shame to have 2 weeks of downtime knowing all the stuff that you have to read this semester. So we're going to utilize these 2 weeks to get a head start, start off running with the material for this term. Because you can't access Blackboard, I can, but you can't until the 18th. I did create a website. So I spent my Christmas break setting everything up so that we could efficiently begin the year without STC right now. So if you click right here, it should take you to the website. And I want to go through the website because this is kind of like our hub for the next 3 weeks, and before we can get onto Blackboard. And I also put some information about the course so that you can have like a little pseudo syllabus today, and I can talk about the difference between this semester course and the second semester. I mean, the first semester and the second semester. So hopefully the link works for you. Let me know if there's an issue accessing it. But this is a British literature course. 2321 is British literature. That's different from the first semester because in the first semester, that course was called Forms of Literature. That's why we studied a unit on short fiction, then we had a unit on poetry, then we had a unit on drama because we were looking at those genres. This semester is different because we're studying British literature from its origins in ancient times to modern literature. And we're going to go chronologically through time, I guess maybe chronologically through time, to look at how English literature evolved, how the language evolved from its origins. So that's the thrust of the course. So we start the course with the very oldest material. It's so old that we have to read it in translation. You will see that I have 3 main links here to help you. The first one is, okay, so let me talk a little bit about the textbook. You can turn in your first semester textbooks. If you check them out at East, you can turn them in. We're not going to be using them anymore. You'll have to turn them in at some point, but if you want to have a physical copy of the textbook, I did put a picture on the website and I'll show you where that is in a minute, but this is the book. It is a big old book. It weighs 27 pounds. I'm just kidding. It's pretty hefty. It's, I don't know, 3,000 pages, 4,500 pages. I know your eyebrows just went boop like that emoji. So this is the actual textbook. If you want to have a physical textbook, I did inform them to have some available so you can check them out at school. So if you go to turn in your first semester set, you can ask Mr. Charles or Mr. Garcia, who is the administrator in charge of textbooks in the front office, to get that one for you. But I probably shouldn't be saying this to you. I found a PDF of the entire textbook. The only difference is that it's the 8th edition, and this guy is the 9th edition. But I think we can work with a PDF of the first one. I'm going to pretend like it's a totally legitimate thing to have a PDF of the textbook, but it's here. I do recommend downloading it to your computer. I noticed when I was working with that file that if you try to use it online, it's always going to be working. There's like 4,000 pages in this PDF, and it's always like churning to like catch up with the pages as you scroll and stuff like that, like especially if you want to jump to page 122 or something. So I think downloading it to your computer, I found that the one that I saved on my computer is a lot faster to upload, but that's there. So in these first few weeks, I'm going to be referring to the page numbers in that PDF. So if you want to get a textbook, if you need a door stopper, if you like walking around with big fat books, then you can go and get that one. Another thing that I have on here is the course calendar. So let me tell you a little bit of a backstory about how things have been evolving with STC. Last spring, they knew that they were going to go 100% virtual for the fall. And they had all of the instructors go through training, extensive training about putting courses online. And during that training, we had to create from scratch our fall course and get it approved by 3 different entities at STC. And that was a long process. So I did that, and I had the fall course all set up. And then 2 weeks before the semester began, the English department sent out a course on Blackboard and said, hey, you can use this if you want. Well, it was not as developed as the one that I did in the summer. And I thought, well, I've spent all that work. I'm just going to execute the course that I created, which we were told we could do. But then when I came to my evaluation in December, they were somewhat unhappy that I hadn't used the course that they had set up. And I'm like, well, maybe you should have given it to us before, 2 weeks before classes started, so that we could look at it and, organize it. So I had a little argument with the department chair about that, but that's a different story. Anyway, the long story short, they really want us to use the STC created version on Blackboard. So I don't have the freedom to make as many choices this semester as I did first semester. And I will be using the STC created course with a few adjustments. We're allowed to make a few adjustments. So anyway, back to the course calendar. So when they finally made that available to us, which was the 2nd week of December, so that we could look at this term, I looked at it, and first thing I noticed was a lot of reading. There is a lot of reading. I'm allowed to adjust the reading list, but the reading list is extensive. You can understand why, because we're starting with the earliest period of literature in English and moving to modern times. So there's a lot to cover. And the way that things make sense to me is to plot them out time-wise. So what I did was I created a course calendar, and you can click here because I've given you visual access to it. And I started to plug in what they had on their reading list and try to figure out how I would organize it by weeks as we go through the semester. It was immediately obvious to me that I'd have to be having class every available day. So one of the big differences with class is that I'm going to have the Zoom meeting every available class day, every Tuesday, every Thursday, and every alternate Friday. Do you need to attend the classes? That's up to you. I'm going to talk about attendance in a minute for East, but I'm going to be recording all the classes. So I'm just going to say that if you think you would benefit from coming in and having me talk about whatever I have on that specific day, that's what I'm going to talk about. And it's set up for the whole semester. So you can go through all the months and see on which days I'm going to talk about which things. And I'll be adding to this, like some of them don't have page numbers in there. I'll put the page numbers in to help you out with the PDF and so on as we go through time. But I laid out the whole semester and I couldn't fit everything in. In some cases, you would have to read almost 100 pages a week just to meet the requirements that STC had on their course. So I thought, well, let me go and look at their midterm and their final and see what might not be on the final. And so I started eliminating a few things from the course, from the reading list, based on time and what is not on the semester exam. So I have adjusted and taken out a few pieces here and there that, although they might be important historically, we're just not going to have time for them, and they're not on the exam. So those are the ones that I took out first. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So what I've fallen into then is this calendar, and you have a link to it there on the website. And I'll put a link also, a permanent link, when the Blackboard opens up to you, you'll have availability there too. Or you can save the link in your bookmarks or whatever. But this is basically how the course is going to be structured, what we'll be doing each week, and the due dates for the different assignments. And I'll talk about the assignments that they're requiring from you in a minute. But right now I'm just going through the website. So the other key element here is that you can click right here, and this is the playlist. So because we're having a lot more Zoom classes, you might need to miss sometimes. Maybe you can't make it to every class. I am going to be recording them, and then here's where you can click to go back and watch that video of class. So if you can't make it to class, that's fine, but you're going to find that if you don't watch the video of class, you're going to start falling behind on material. You can look, I mean, it is possible to look at the calendar and say, oh, okay, well, this Thursday she's talking about these pages of Beowulf. I read it, I understood it. I don't think I need to go to that class, period. That's perfectly fine. I'm not going to feel bad if you don't come to class. I'm going to feel bad if you start, you know, not being able to do your discussions and failing the midterm. So if you feel like you want to just pick and choose which classes you come to, then that's fine. But I'm going to be having class and talking about these different things on all of the days that are listed here. And there will also be videos available to you if you want to go and watch it. Maybe you'd like to watch it because I know I'm a little bit of a chatterbox. Maybe you can put me on 1.5 playback and actually have the class faster, but hopefully a few people will show up on these class days so that I can help you through the material. But yeah, so the playlist is here for 2B. I upload them the same day as class. So that's sort of like a little, you know, dashboard thing that you've got going on there. Then because we don't have access to the Blackboard until the week of the 18th, I went ahead and I just made a list of what needs to happen each of the 3 weeks coming up so that you can have everything in one place. And, you know, this is like the interim Blackboard before Blackboard opens up. So you can see that I've listed for this week what's happening next week. Next week we have 3 days that we can have a Zoom class. So I have something for each day, and then week 3 is there too. So I'm going to talk more about this stuff toward the end of class, like what you need to prepare for Thursday, but you'll just see that everything for the 3 weeks is laid out there. Why don't you join me on this tab over here under adjustments, because I want to talk about, I'm spending a little bit of time talking about how this course is going to be different from the first semester course. There are some content related things, and there are also some sort of day-to-day business things that are going to be different just because of how much reading you're going to need to be doing. I anticipate that you'll be spending most of your time reading in preparation for the course. So I already said that 2321 is British literature and it's chronological, so we're moving through time. Here's the textbook. Here's another link to the PDF of the textbook that I found. I already talked about that. All right, so here's the reading list. If you want to see what they gave me, you can, I'm going to go through this page in a minute, but if you scroll down here, or you can just look on my screen here, this is the departmental list of what they gave me for us to read this term. I'm going to amend it. I have already amended it, and I may need to amend it further, but right now I have amended it. But this is the original list that they gave me. So this is the list of all of the readings, and then there's the midterm. The midterm is the week before spring break. So this stuff is all the stuff that we are reading or supposed to read in the next, you know, 2 months. Then after the midterm, we move into the romantic period, and this is the list for the second half of the term. It includes a full novel, it includes a full Shakespearean drama, and a number of poems. So you can see it's a good overview. I mean, if you're really looking at literature of all these different time periods, but you can see that that's a lot. And I thought to assign 6 of these things for 1 week for you just to read on your own without me coming in and giving you the opportunity to come into class and listen to me talk about them and help you internalize what's happening in the pieces, I just felt like I needed to have class available to you every available class day. So that's what I was faced with at first. But like I said, I've amended it a little bit. There's a lot of history that you have to read too, because literature through the time periods is based in a lot of ways on what was happening historically, and the growth of the language also is dependent on that. You'll be reading a lot of background on British history. And maybe some of it you already know if you're taking European history, or if you have in the past. You might already know some of these things, but it'll be good to know how it's relating to the literature of each time period. There will be 16 grades for the term, and they roll out like this. There are 12 discussions. Now the discussions are discussion boards that you complete on Blackboard. There are very involved topics that you need to address in a response of at least 500 words for each response. And then you're required to respond to 3 of your classmates with at least 150 words. And that's what they call a discussion. So you'll note on the calendar that the first discussion is due on January 22nd, but the week before, next Friday, when we have that bonus day in the week, I'm going to talk about what the expectations are. We'll look at the rubric. I'll share with you the discussion topic for topic 1, because you can't see it at that point from the Blackboard. So I'm going to prepare you to do that first discussion and give you a little bit of guidance and support as you begin that first discussion, so that you can have the best grade on that as possible, because the discussions are 20% of the grade for the term. It's equal to the midterm and the final. So that's an important grade. I want you to start off on the best foot possible. So we will be talking about that discussion before it's due. And that way, you have some support on that. But there are 12 of those throughout the term, almost 1 per week. There are 2 analytical papers, and 1 midterm and 1 final exam. So those are all the grades for the term. So if you feel like you can do the discussions and the papers and the midterm and the final reading on your own without coming in and hearing me talk about the pieces, then that's fine. I mean, the ultimate goal is for you to get a good grade on the term. But if you find that when you're reading, it would be good to come in and hear me talk about those things, then join us for the class periods. I already talked about that here. So attendance. So then how are we going to deal with the fact that you have to have an attendance grade for each class day? Well, since I'm having class every day, if you come to the Zoom class, I'll mark you present. You do not need to do a formative every day if you come to the Zoom class. If you can't make it to the Zoom class, then you will need to do the formative, just so that I can give you attendance credit. The formative will always be the same question. So if you are in class, you don't even need to go to formative. I already marked you present just from being here. But if you miss, if you had something else going on, if you weren't here to get your attendance points by being in class, then you will go formative for that day, and there will be a question. It's always going to be this question right here. What questions do you have about this week's readings? Because if you weren't in class, I worry that you're behind in your reading, or you might have questions that, since you weren't in class, you didn't hear me talk about. So you only need to do that if you're not in class on a given day. And that way you can get a little bit of help with what we're reading. I'll respond to you so that you have the answer to your question. And also you can get your attendance credit that way. But there will not be daily formatives. I think it's better this term that you spend your time reading. So I've changed that around for this term. Any questions on how that's working with the formatives for attendance? I want to make sure everybody knows, because that's a big difference. Anybody? Okay, I don't see anything else in the chat. So let me go to where it says course overview. So this is kind of like the pseudo syllabus, since I can't make a syllabus yet with the STC application. I will go over the course details here so that you have, I'll go over the syllabus too when it's available. I can create it and share it with you. I'll go over it then as well, but I don't see the point in waiting when I already created this website. I could talk about how the course is going to work. So this is the course description that they have for you. This course is a survey of the development of British literature from the Anglo-Saxon period, which is where we're starting, to the present. Students will study works of prose, poetry, drama, and fiction in relation to their historical, linguistic, and cultural context. So how is the language and the literature changing as we go through time and culture changes in Britain? Text will be selected from a diverse group of authors and traditions. I wouldn't say it's the most diverse I've ever seen, but they want to call it diverse, so okay. 12 discussion interactions. I just finished talking about those. 2 essays, a midterm, and a final exam. The breakdown for those is coming up, how those percents work out. So basically, there are 6 periods that they have identified as crucial units of study, and they relate to time periods. So we'll go through them in the order that they occurred historically. They are the Anglo-Saxon period in the Middle Ages, the 16th and 17th centuries, the Restoration in the 18th century, the Romantic period, the Victorian era, and the 20th century and modernism and that sort of thing. So there are 6 time periods and there are 15 weeks, which means you've got, you know, like, I don't know, 2 weeks for each time period, but based on the readings, it's not always exactly 2 weeks, but roughly, because in there are 2 exam weeks for the midterm and for the final. So these are the units that we'll be going through. We'll be spending approximately 2 weeks on each. Yes.
I gotta go for it.
Okay. All right. Well, I told you to just check the video later.
All right, mommy. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Bye. There are 4 main things that we'll be focusing on for each one of these units. So you're responsible for understanding what is Anglo-Saxon and Middle Ages literature look like? What are the cultural forces that created it? How is the language evolving through each one of these periods? And how does history impact them? So we'll be thinking about what are the main characteristics of literature during this period. I should be able to give you a piece of literature and you should be able to tell me that's a Romantic poem from the Romantic era, or that's an Anglo-Saxon piece, just based on its characteristics. Who are significant authors from this time period? In what ways does the literature of this period show the evolution of the English language? And how does the literature of this period reflect its historical time and culture? So I have a matrix, I have a chart that I'll share with you later in the week that has it broken down so that you can keep track of these 4, A, B, C, D, for each one of these periods and kind of make some general notes for yourself if you want to use that. Prerequisite. The first semester is not a prerequisite to this semester, even though everybody passed the first semester. We didn't have any Fs. Grade distribution. So the discussions are worth 20% of your overall average for this term. It's equal to the midterm and equal to the final exam. So those are important grades overall. And so that's why I want to make sure that before we do the first discussion, we have some time to talk about it and look at the topic and what are they asking and how can I make sure that that's complete and so on and so forth. So I'll go over that for you before the first one. Actually, I think I have it set up in the calendar that before every discussion, at least the day before it's due, I'm going to talk about that topic. So I think I have it set up so that we'll at least look at the topic together and clarify anything that might be confusing, but especially for the first one, because the first one, I want it to be successful for you from the very beginning. Okay, here's all the learning outcomes. This is the stuff I usually skip on the syllabus, but basically it says that our goal is to read and write and research about literature, but you can read those on your own if you're interested. And then here is all of the reading list that I was showing you earlier. So there are a few things that I'll be taking out. We're doing 2 full-length plays. We're going to read Heart of Darkness. That's a novel. So yeah, there's a lot on the list. But I think I've made a pretty good compromise of it. I'm allowed to adjust it slightly. Any questions on the course details or general things about the course? I know that it probably sounds like a lot, and I mean, I could sugarcoat it and I could say, oh, but don't worry, it's going to be easy. It's not. The only way I can make it easier for you is to be straightforward about the expectations for the course, and then being here as a really strong support for you as we go through the term. So that's the best way that I can support you and help you get the grade that you would like to have for this course. So that's why I've made some of the changes that I've made, and hopefully those make sense to you. So, I mean, I know on the first day it's a lot, but I also feel like if we took it easy on the first day, then we would just not have the lead time that we have to get through what we need to get through. So hopefully it's not too much. Just remember, I'm here for you through the whole process. And every reading that you have, I have a time on the calendar where I'm talking about it in a Zoom class. So if there's anything that you run across that you really just want to come in and hear me lecture on, or come in and answer questions, then you have the calendar to tell you what days those are. All right, let's go back to the home page on the website, and you will see that week 1 is already laid out here for you. So let me talk about Thursday. Thursday is our next class meeting. Like I said, you can choose to come to that class meeting, get marked present, and then hear me talk about the first half of Beowulf. Or if you have other obligations, then you can watch the video afterwards. The only thing is, if you watch the video, then there's not the opportunity to ask live questions, but you can always communicate with me, the different ways that you have to do that. So for Thursday, I'm going to talk about the first half of Beowulf, which is pages 72 to 94. Beowulf is a poem. So we're going to be reading it in translation, because Anglo-Saxon, as the origin of the English language, you cannot read it in modern sense. So we're going to be reading it in translation. So on Thursday, I'm going to talk about this whole section of the text, these 5 parts that you're supposed to read. And I put the PDF of the textbook here. Also, there's a really good audio of this version of Beowulf. So if it helps you to read and listen at the same time, then you can do that. If you want to just read it, then that's fine. The PDF of the textbook is here. So it starts on page 72. There's a little bit of background material that I want you to read that precedes the Beowulf text. So the way I'm going to scroll through it is to watch down here and see how close I can get to 72. It jumps pretty fast because there's so many pages in this PDF. As you can see, it's kind of slow to load. At least on my computer it is. So I'm just going to scroll down to 72, and you can see. Okay, so here's where the reading starts. It looks like this. This is the background on Beowulf. And there's just a little bit about the text and the historical context for it here, a little bit about the characters, notes on names, and then this on page 77 is when the text actually begins. So the first part is here, and you can see that it's a poem. It's in translation, so it's not too hard to read. You might have to look up a few words. There are some footnotes. Do read the footnotes to help you internalize what's being discussed, in the text. So that's what it looks like. Read the background and then read the first part of Beowulf. If you like to annotate and you are not going to get, this stupendous book from school, then you can I like to use this tool called Cami. It's not a requirement, but some people do like to make notes, and it would be helpful maybe when you're studying for the midterm to have notes. And if you don't want to make a separate document about notes, then you could annotate. So I like this add-on called Cami. You get tools like a text tool, and you can underline stuff and highlight and whatnot. So you can use that. I'm not going to open it because it takes a while to open such a long PDF. But if you had it on your computer, then it might be easier for you to manipulate if you wanted to do that. But in preparation for reading the beginning part of Beowulf, it's like the first I guess about half. There's some that they skip. You can see that they're going to skip over here. We'll finish talking about Beowulf next Tuesday, and there's a portion that they skip from page 112 to 123. And they skip from, oh no, that's the only part they skip. There is a video lecture that I made for background on Anglo-Saxon literature. If you don't know about the history of Britain, if you don't know about the Roman expansion into what's now Britain, then you will need to watch the video. It also explains why we have as our first long work of English, why it is a tale from another country. So that video is fairly short, and I'll go through some slides with some maps and talk to you about Anglos and Saxons and how the world was geographically set up at the time and how history has a function with that. Here's a slideshow that I used for that video. So do that, and also orient yourself to the characters. We're talking about an ancient story that when it was written down was written in a language that we don't read today. So the names are really strange, and when you start reading Beowulf, you're going to run into names like this one right here. And in your mind, as you're reading, you're going to make up a pronunciation for that. There is a pronunciation for the characters' names. This guy happens to be the father of Beowulf, and so they're going to all the time say like the son of Ecgtheow. Well, in your mind, when you are reading, you might say Ecgtheow. And then when I say Ecgtheow in the lecture, you might not put two and two together and think that they're the same character. So here is a written pronunciation, and I also made a video. If you click here, you can go to the video of the main characters. The ones that are in yellow are pronounced in that video so that you can start to hear how the names sound. They're very strange to us, the pronunciation. These are Viking people, so their names are from a completely different ancient language. And so just so that you can start to get a feel for the characters' names, I put that there. So there's a little prep work. Watch the video lecture on the historical background, orient yourself to the characters, and then you need to read through page 94 of Beowulf for Thursday. Now, I need to say this just so that it's out in the open. You don't have to come to any classes if you want to just do the formatives all the time, but I think that you'll be missing out on a lot of clarity and a lot of explanation and the opportunity to ask questions about what you're reading if you don't come to class. But I'm not going to feel bad about it if you don't come to class. I mean, I just want you to pass the class. So hopefully you'll see benefit in coming to the classes. If you read through this and you say, oh, I got it, then, you know, it's up to you. You'll have to go and do the formative, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to do, you know, the first discussion question based on your reading. So, or you can go back and watch the video after the fact. So in any case, then next week we're going to be finishing Beowulf. There are some notes to do. We have 3 class periods next week, so then we're going to start in on the Middle Ages and start talking about Sir Gawain. And then next Friday, I'll start talking about the discussions that are due the following week and answer any questions that you have on that reading. So the lecture schedule is set up to keep you on track so that you don't have 500 pages to read before the midterm or something. And you can get the support as you read, also preparing as we go through and keep you on track. So are there any questions about the course? Or I know I went through a lot today. Any questions about what to do for Thursday, etc.? Looking in the chat, I don't see anything. If you came in late to this Zoom meeting, I think you're going to want to go back to the beginning of the video. I will post the video on the website. You can see that there is a playlist right here is where you can find all the videos for every class period. So if you were late today, I do want you to go back and watch the part that you missed, because I started talking about you know, the changes for this semester and so on. And that way you have an opportunity to catch up with the rest of the class. All right, well, if there aren't any questions, hopefully I've given you the lay of the land and a starting point for our next class period, which will be Thursday. So if there are any questions in the meantime, just send them my way and I'll be glad to respond to you. All right. You do not need to do a formative today if you were here in class. The formative is set up for the people who weren't here. I'm going to email them. Okay. All right. Have a good day. Good to see you all back in 2021.